Welcome back, grade 8. Today we are going to carry on with the food chains, and now the next level would be to understand a food web. So firstly, what exactly do they mean when they say food web? So food web is not just one food chain, but this is when many food chains are put together. Then we get something called a food web. Right, so what you can see from this diagram is that there are many interlinked food chains. So let's just, for example's sake, look at one individual food chain inside of this food web. So here we have a tree, okay, and this mouse is going to feed from the tree. The tree is the producer. The mouse, or actually the mouse is eating looks like from this grass. So let's just erase that part. So the mouse is eating from the grass, and you can follow that by looking at the arrow. Okay, so next we have another animal that will eat the mouse, and that animal will be the snake. So the snake in that food chain would be the secondary consumer. Then we follow the arrow, and the organism that will catch the snake is the eagle. So the eagle would be the tertiary consumer. But that is just one food chain within this ecosystem. If we follow another food chain, here we have let's look at the lice, the plant lice. So here we have a producer. The plant lice is going to eat from that piece of plant. Then there are two organisms that will eat the plant lice. There's a praying mantis that can eat the plant lice, and then the guinea fowl will eat the praying mantis. So this food chain can go in that direction, in there, and then we can have an eagle that will eat the guinea fowl. So there are many interlinked food chains, and this shows you what an ecosystem looks like. There are many organisms that will feed off of different organisms. A guinea fowl doesn't only eat a plant lice. The guinea fowl can also eat the grass over there. The guinea fowl also eats a caterpillar. Um, and yeah, so you sort of just have to analyze this graph by looking, or it's not a graph, this food web, by looking at the direction of the arrows. So it is a good idea for an organism to have many different sources of food. For example, if you only live off of chicken, no, that's a bad example. You only live off strawberries, but strawberries have different seasons in which we can find them. So it is a good idea for you to eat strawberries and also some fish, because fish would be in season when the strawberries is out of season. So it is for organisms, they need to have different food sources, and this is for them to um, not to have a problem if one food source is disappearing. Then they have a different source of food. Then, as I mentioned, not all food sources are available all year round, so it is beneficial if they can have an alternative source. Right, so girls, in an exam we can give you a food web. So by looking at this food web on this slide, we can give you a few questions. So they can ask you to name the producer. So the producer is always the plant. So the producer would be this daisy. Then name two herbivores. So that word herbivore, I'm sure you know what it means, but a herbivore is an animal that only eats plants exclusively. So according to this diagram, which organism exclusively eats plants? So you could have mentioned this little aphid. You could have mentioned that moth or the mouse. Then two species that are top carnivores, that would be the owl and this stoat, which looks like a cute little dog. But anyways, number 4, how many secondary consumers are there? So now you have to go and count. So let's start. So let's follow the red path. So this aphid in the red path would be a primary consumer, primary. Then this ladybug would be the secondary consumer. Following the blue path, this moth would be the primary consumer, and that little bird would be the secondary consumer. Following the orange path, the moth would be the primary consumer and the spider would be the secondary consumer. Following the green path, this little mouse would be the primary consumer and this stoat would be the secondary consumer. Then there's also a purple pathway where the mouse is the primary consumer and then the owl is the secondary consumer. So you can see things are quite connected. So counting all of the secondary consumers, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right, so girls, next I just want to explain by using a food web how organisms are quite dependent on each other. And if one organism in a food chain or in a food web goes extinct, that would have a ripple effect on the rest of the food web. So that disturbance can be caused by humans, so when we damage their habitats, and the population of species will decline dramatically depending on how much of an effect we have on this ecosystem. Right, so girls, here we have a little exercise and I would really like you to pause the PowerPoint or pause the YouTube video, answer the questions in your workbook and then continue with the video and then mark your own scripts. So they're asking you to give an example of each of the following. So a producer. So for the producer, you can give any of these plants at the bottom. Plant, tree, grass. Next, we have a herbivore. So the herbivore exclusively eats plants. So this grasshopper is only eating plants. This plant lice is only eating plants. You can't take the guinea fowl because the guinea fowl is eating plants and plant lice. Then the caterpillar you could have mentioned. You could have mentioned the mouse and you could have mentioned the daisy. Next, they want you to mention a carnivore. So again, exclusively eating animals. So only meat. So that only meat. So it can be the praying mantis. It can't be the guinea fowl because the guinea fowl is eating the bug and the grass. It can be, we don't know about the lizard. Oh wait, the lizard is eating the caterpillar. So that it could be the lizard. It can be the snake and it could be the eagle and that's about it. Next we have an omnivore. So that's an organism that eats plants and animals. So that would be my guinea fowl. And I don't see any other options. Yeah, you can just let me know if you have a different answer, but it seems like it's only the guinea fowl. Next, name the animal. So again, you're going to pause after you saw the questions and then we'll mark. So name the animal that sucks the sap out of plants? What a strange question. So that would be the plant lice. That is question A. Question B, which organism will eat the mice? So there we have the mice, and the organism that eats the mice would be my snake. Question C, is an insect. Which animal? Name the animal that is an insect and eats other insects. So that would be the praying mantis. He is an insect and he is eating a grasshopper, an insect. And then number 3, what do you call an animal that eats insects? That would be an insectivore. Question 4. Write down 2 food chains from this food web. There are many things, many food chains. So let's look at one. You can have plant. So your food chain always has to start with plant. Then you have an arrow pointing in the right direction, caterpillar. Then you can have guinea fowl, and then you can have eagle. Another food web would be plant, daisy, snake, eagle. So there are many options. Just follow the arrows and make sure that, I don't think you can go wrong with question 4. Question 5, what do you think will happen if most of the plants die? So if most of these plants die, it would obviously have a ripple effect. So if the plants die, the daisy won't survive, the mouse won't survive, the caterpillar won't survive, the plant lice and the grasshopper won't survive, and that would have an effect on the secondary consumer. So most of the ecosystem will be wiped out. Question 6. What will happen to the insects if most of the guinea fowls would die? So that the guinea fowl is now dead, what would happen to the insects? So looking at the caterpillar, right? The guinea fowl will eat the caterpillar. So what would happen to the caterpillar if the guinea fowls can't eat them anymore? The guinea fowls, the caterpillars would increase in number. And next one, the plant lice. The guinea fowl also eat the plant lice. So the plant lice would also increase in number because they don't have a predator that would prey on them anymore. Then the praying mantis, also an insect, and the praying mantis is also eaten by the guinea fowl. So the praying mantis numbers would rise. But now if we look at going into a next level, since the praying mantis levels are larger, they are going to eat the plant lice. If you can follow the food chain, the praying mantis will eat the plant lice, so there's more plant lice, there's more praying mantis, so that is perfectly fine. But the grasshopper is eaten by the praying mantis. And if there are now more praying mantis, that will cause a drop in the grasshopper levels. So for this question, we would ask you specifically, the guinea fowls would die out. What would the effect be on the grasshoppers? And then you would have to explain your answer. Question 7. What would happen if there are more snakes and eagles than caterpillars and mice? So if we look at the food web in which they are sort of connected, there's a tree. The tree is being eaten by the mice, and the snake eats the mice. So if there are more snakes, the snakes levels increase. That would cause the mice levels to drop because more mice will be eaten by the increased number of snakes. Right, so what will happen if there are more snakes and eagles compared to caterpillars and mice? So looking at a different food chain in which they are all connected, there we have the caterpillar, the lizard will eat the caterpillar, and the eagle would eat the lizard. So that is a food, this food chain is one where they're also all connected. And then even the lizard will be eaten by the snake. So this food chain, that's a third food chain in which they're all connected. So if the eagle and snake's levels are higher, that would cause the eagles would prey on the lizards, so there'll be less lizards, and therefore there'll be less caterpillars. And the same with the snakes. If there are more snakes, the snakes and the more eagles will both feed on all of the lizards. So there'll be less and less food for the eagles and the snakes because they are far too much predators to be fed. So the lizards would die out, and the caterpillars and the mouse levels would drop even more. Okay, so girls, on the slide there's the answers to the exercises if you want to carry on with the marking. Right girls, that is that for this lesson. Up next we'll be talking about energy pyramids.